Today we have a returning guest. David Falconer is here with us from NextMinute, and he's going to be talking about fixed price jobs need detailed back costing. So this is in the construction kind of industry. We're going to be delving into this topic today and hopefully get some of your questions answered and give you a little bit of advice in this area. It can be a bit tricky. So you may be tuning in on various platforms, perhaps YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. And if you are, we'd love to have you contribute to the session by dropping your questions into the comments, Q&A, or chat function, depending on what platform you're tuning in from. Now, if you're with us on Zoom, feel free to use those same options. And yeah, let's take it. Let's get into it. Hey, Dave. You don't mind if I call you Dave, right? You prefer it, isn't that right?
I don't mind at all. I'm called a lot of things depending on what's going on, but Dave or David is perfectly fine, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, fantastic.
And I'll share up my screen and I'll kick into it. But look, I think what's coming to light more and more is just how important it is for builders and the trades industry to, I guess, get control of what they're doing, and specifically around, when you're doing fixed price jobs. We all are quite aware of the inflationary pressures that are going on at the moment. And so getting a good method to how you do this and with the setup and how you track it is really key. Because at the end of the day, we're here, or NextMinute exists to help make the builder and trades life a bit easier.
Yes, because I spoke with a gentleman the other day and he was saying that, they had lots of orders, but they just couldn't get a hold of the stuff in order to fill those orders. So, I'm interested to see how we combat that, or how we negotiate that. So looking forward to it. I'll drop my camera off and make sure everything's working in the back. Thanks, Dave.
Cool. Here we go. I think that's all looking good. So yes, I'm Dave Falconer. I'm the CEO and co-founder of NextMinute. And as I mentioned, kind of the reason why we're here and why we exist as a business is to make that business life easier for builders and trades. Now, I know, it can get really complicated and there's a lot of moving parts to it, but it's also a very rewarding industry as well. A lot of builders and tradies we talk to, really love what they do, but often it's the admin that they hate, but it's a necessary part of what it is. And so what NextMinute is fundamentally it's job management software, which has been purpose-built for builders and trades to help them run these businesses in a better, more efficient way. A really important part to this is to think about it as like a digital tool belt. So this allows you to, whether you're at home in the office or in your ute or van or out on site, to be able to see and track any of the key bits of information that you need and just get it done right then and there. And what this leads to is, if you're putting in some good information or the right data, it's really important that that is seamlessly connected across other things that you do. So most importantly, your accounting packages, so the likes of Xero and MYOB, as a couple of examples. We see that anything that we can do to reduce that manual entry or speed up the process or reduce paper, those are all really key components to making life easier or nicer as a businessman. So another way to think about job management is an online filing cabinet. So there's a lot of moving parts, and it's about getting all of those things sitting in one place so that you can quickly and easily navigate across any of those key pieces so that you can get visibility. So whether this is building your quotes, doing some planning, ensuring that your team is assigned to the right work at the right time, getting your team to timesheet and pass that information back through to you, understanding and allocating those costs, and then ultimately getting those invoices out, which is how you get paid. And then having the ability to report on or monitor across the different jobs you've got on the go, all from your phone, tablet, or computer. And as mentioned, connecting into Xero and MYOB is a really key piece, so that, again, you've got a one-stop shop, which is going to help you navigate through, running these building and trade jobs. So today, the topic is around back costing, and Anamari talked about that. I think it was last month I gave another webinar session, which is around, sort of shifting from pure play manual processes and starting to adopt technology. So if you wanted to sort of have a look at that and get the basis of some of the things we're going to talk about, that would that'd be a nice place to start. And then this is obviously building on from that. So what this is talking about today is back costing. And ultimately what back costing is, and it can be at a really high level or really detailed level, is the fact that in order to understand your profits, you've got to understand your quotes and your costs. So that is effectively saying, what do I think this was going to cost when I issued my quote? And then as you're incurring costs, where am I at on this now? And so there's a basic set of, I guess, steps or stages I want to talk through today, with a specific slant on how we do it inside NextMinute. So I'll run through these, and then what I'm going to do is, after I've stepped through these 5 points, is I'm then going to show you this inside our product, because it's really important that you get to see, that it is an easy transition to make. So like a lot of things, I think the setup is so crucial. And that all starts with the quote inside NextMinute. So not dissimilar to getting your slab down or your foundations down, is if you do that right, spend that extra bit of time, triple check stuff, that's setting you up for success, right? So everything kind of starts from that platform or that foundation. And so the point here is that if you do the right setup, get yourself organized, keep that quote out that's accurate and in a timely manner, you've sort of set yourself up for the rest of the job. The second piece is the fact that you've created this quote, and more often than not, that will represent how you like to break down all the stages of that job. Well, we want to go and convert that into a plan for you so that you can then use that as a basis to deliver on what you've said. So I'll step through that. Because also the key thing with having a plan is that then allows you to be more considered with how you move things around and how to control your costs. So then that leads us to point 3, which is around accrual of these costs. So you've said it's going to cost you X. Now, as time rolls by and your bills start rolling in and your subbies send you an invoice and your guys are timesheeting or completing all their work on their labor charges, those need to be key point here is all of those costs need to be accrued up to understand whether you're making some money or where your costs are at. Another really key piece here is don't forget those variations. Too often we see businesses letting them kind of slide through a pile up to the end, and then they try and do a wash up. And I would argue that dealing with them in a timely manner as you move through that job is a far better way. And then you're going to get a better engagement from your clients. And for you, that's kind of peace of mind that these things have been approved and dealt with right up front. So no surprises. Accurate invoicing and getting them out swiftly. I mean, this is really key. If you're producing invoices that are accurate and you're doing them quickly, there's a direct ripple through to your cash flow. And we all know why that's good. So as you're issuing out your invoices, you want to be understanding what your margins are. So that's going to be fed back to you as you do that. Lastly, around this back costing piece is then having visibility over this whole process. Okay, so it shouldn't be complicated to know what you said up front, track what you've got going on, and then when you're starting to see things come through, day to day, week to week, you should be able to just get visibility of it. Where am I at on my foundations? I said it was going to cost $20,000. How much have I spent today? Where am I on my framing? So just going through and breaking down those different components is a really key piece. So that's all about visibility. And the other word for that is peace of mind. Like if you know where you're at on your jobs, that's a really good thing. And that's useful for your mental state to actually know what's going on. Okay, so as I said, I'll talk through these different components. So there's 5 of them. So set up for success. life is better when we do that. Now, last time I presented, I chucked this slide up, and I just wanted to start with that slide again. And that's the fact that that we understand there's a lot of moving parts and processes that have all got to come together to make this stuff work. Okay. But I would like to show you that it doesn't have to be that hard. And if you have a few of these pieces in place right up front, it just means you don't end up with a desk looking like that. You actually have a lot more freedom and clarity as to where you're at. So again, this is all about making life better. And when we break it down, there's only a few key ingredients to all of this. So to get back costing working really, really succinctly, there's only a few ingredients. So first thing is we need to get NextMinute set up and get that integrated through into your accounting package, Xero MYOB. Now, it's really important that the detail is connected through with Xero MYOB. And what I mean by that is it's not just around getting your invoices passed to, let's say, Xero. It's about getting the invoice passed, the payments coming back through, your bills loaded in and synced. But you can do that both ways. And then even on top of that, having your timesheets synced through into payroll. Okay, so if you've got that all working, that's a whole bunch of moving parts all glued up nicely. Then from a setup perspective inside NextMinute, there's only really a few things. As I said, it isn't a lot. And once you've got them done, they're reusable and you can sort of build on from this. So one of them is around getting your staff set up and the appropriate labor rates that you use. Next one is around getting your price books or your materials in there, and any other costs or standard costs that you like to use as part of your quoting process. So when it comes to materials, there's several different options. One is you can obviously add them in as you go, or add them in just manually. But I guess the best way to do it is to actually get your price files from your key trade suppliers. And you can just import them directly in. And once you've done that once, you can then build a repeatable process on that so that you're always keeping your prices up to date. Now that's critical at the moment, because if you've got a quote sitting there for a couple of months and it hasn't yet been approved, you need to be able to check and refresh any of the prices or assumptions that you've got in there. And so we allow you to do that. So you got your labor rates all set up, materials and other costs. The next thing is to get a quote template. Now, once you've created one, you can create more. But the key thing here is build that quote template, factor in all your markups so that you've got a profit and a margin that you're happy with. So by doing that, you're standardizing your approach, and that when you issue that quote, you know what you're going to get. I talked about this last time, but I'll talk about it one more time just because I think it's so important. And this is the fact that you'll be using some key trade suppliers. These trade suppliers are getting more and more connected and technically savvy. So I just chucked up a couple of examples there. So the likes of Carter's as an example, you can now connect in your trade portal into Xero. So that means that you can pull through your bills from your trade portal in Carter's and have them synced directly into Xero. Okay, so the same with Placemakers and in Mitre 10. Bunnings, they've got one connected in for MYOB. So the point here is it's getting easier to get the information out of your trade suppliers and directly into your accounting packages. So that's less administration, less manual intervention, and a clearer view on what are all your costs when it comes to these materials as they come in. Good news is if you can get them into Xero MYOB like this, NextMinute can pull those bills out of those accounting packages so that you can accrue them up as charges against your job. Again, just a nice seamless way to reuse that information rather than rekeying it. Okay, so let's say we've now built our quote. It's templated up. Again, I'll show you this inside our product. But really one of the next key things is that you now understand all your costs. You've got the different stages mapped out that are sitting inside your quote, which represent, either sort of how you're going to get paid or the key stages of the job. We can now turn that quote and the different sections directly into a plan. Okay, so that then again, we're reusing that information for the purposes now of not just costing, but planning. So that then comes through into our job planning view. And then from there, you can, move things around. You can create dependencies. And so that you've got a nice plan on how you're going to deliver to that quote. And that allows you to then build out and assign out your team members, and so that they know what they're working on. And then they've got the right components to be timesheeting against, so that you can then back cost against each of those different sections, or I guess tasks that you've broken your job down into. Hence, giving you that detail to understand where your costs are coming in. So accruing up those costs, this is really key. And I said it earlier, is get all of the costs. If you don't get all of your costs in against the different jobs, you don't actually understand how much money you're making. You might think you're making money, but unless you've got all the costs in there, it's really hard to understand. Now, you can use your mobile device and on the fly, just punch in, some of the material costs that you might be incurring along the way. So you can actually do that incrementally as you're moving through day to day, week to week for that job. Some of the bigger invoices that are getting pushed through into the likes of Xero or MYOB, well, you can pull those through into NextMinute and have them turn up as a supplier bill or supplier invoice, and then automatically have them accrue up as charges, so that your costs are all going to be filled up on your materials and all your other charges that are coming in from your sub trades, meaning you now have visibility and can track back on what you said it was going to cost versus what it is actually costing. Other key component here is getting your staff to timesheet. So we've got a really nice, obviously we've got an app for NextMinute, and so giving access to your staff is going to mean that they can view the jobs and the different tasks that are coming up. So from a schedule perspective, but most importantly, they're going to be able to accrue up their time that they've spent on each of those components. And look, you don't have to be a mathematician to understand that if you've got 5 guys working on, say, 3 different jobs at any given time, you can see that that's a lot of moving parts and data. Now, trying to do that manually or paper-based can be a bit of a nightmare. Whereas if you just give them access, they can do that all in one interface. All that information is going to accrue up against the correct jobs and the correct tasks that sit underneath it. So if someone's working on foundations, they can say, I did 4 hours working on foundations and I did 3 hours working on framing, whatever those things might be across the different jobs. That means you are automatically getting an accrual of all your staff's costs or labor costs against all the correct pieces of those jobs. So you're kind of clear felling all of that admin just by getting them to log in and record their time against the different parts of the job. Sounds really simple, and it actually is. It's actually one of the key things that people start with when they start using NextMinute. I just thought I'd touch on this as well. So it's really nice that we've got everyone timesheeting in here, and that's going to be working, and that's going to give you your costs directly through onto those jobs. But we take it one step further, and I just thought I'd touch on this, is if you're using payroll out of Xero or MYOB, we directly sync your timesheets that your staff are entering directly into payroll. Okay, so again, that's just one less thing that you need to worry about or do. So if you've got someone who's in charge of payroll, that information is going to come through for them, and then they're going to do any final adjustments and then run it, rather than try and cobble together everyone's timesheets, manually enter it all in, and then run payroll. So this is definitely making things a lot slicker. On top of that, if you're using the likes of Smart Payroll, we've got a standard extract that you can run that can be imported directly. So effectively, that's another slick way to do it. So then you got your customer invoices. So you've built your quote, got all your costs turning up, literally irrespective of your costs that are turning up when you're doing a fixed price job, you're going to be invoicing for the different stages or parts that you have indicated in your quote. So we make that really easy. So you can just turn parts of your quote directly into invoices, so that it's all linked through. And then that way you can really quickly and easily get those invoices out for the different stages of the job. Once again, when you're doing that quickly and accurately, customers are going to go, well, that's looking good. That's what I expect. You can then be confident that they're going to be paying it ahead of any, contentious issues because if something's not right or it's been delayed. And by doing that, you can then sync all your invoices as you send them off to your clients directly into your accounting package. And then once those are paid and reconciled, that just pulls straight back into NextMinute. So you've got that, I guess, end-to-end view. So those are the key moving parts to it. As I said, there's only really 4 things. And then I guess what's really key is now that visibility. So because you've done the hard work and you've got your quote set up and you've got it issued out, you've got all your team members time sheeting. Okay, so that's working out all your labor costs and charges and hours. Your bills and any of your charges are coming in and you're adding them to the different parts of the job. This report just runs. So you can just click a single button and then this runs a report and goes, give me a view across the top for this job. How am I going? Estimated costs versus actual costs and all the variances that come with it. Then it takes down the next level, which is, so tell me about the foundations, tell me about the walls and roof, tell me about the framing. So as those different parts of your job start incurring charges, costs, you're going to be able to back cost against what you actually said in your quote. Now, this is going to be happening in real time for you. So you can have an understanding on a Friday afternoon. You could come in here, run this report and go, well, where am I at on on the whole job? And then where am I at on each of these different components? And then you can use that as a basis to make decisions on, so what do I need to do to correct this stuff? Now, I spent a lot more time on my foundations than I budgeted, so I need to be kind of thinking smarter when it comes to, getting the cladding system up. But also it's another really good piece for you to see that if you're overrunning or getting close to it, maybe it's because the scope's changing or you need to create a variation. So it gives you that basis to see all this stuff in real time. And if you had to try and pull this together in a spreadsheet across all of those different moving parts, or even back of the envelope, using your intuition on where you think you're at, it would take a long time. So now you can just basically open up NextMinute, click a button, run this report, and you've got a view of your top line back costing and all the details that go underneath it. Okay, so that's been a lot of talking about the product in regards to some screenshots. What I'll do now is I'm going to log in and actually take you through these components that I've talked about and show you this in a real life scenario, or like more living and breathing. So you can actually see the things that I've talked about and get a bit of context as to how it actually works. Okay, so I'm inside NextMinute, and in this case here, I'm an administrator, so I'm getting to see everything and do everything. So I just thought I'd let you know that your apprentice, when they come in here, they aren't going to be able to see all these financials. They have a very restricted view of what just what they need to see and do to complete their work. So the first thing we talked about was the setup. So what do I need to do to get set up to make this work? And as I said, we need our labor costs and charges. We need the materials, any other disbursement type costs, and then we need a template. So let's go and take a look at how that actually looks inside NextMinute and how quickly and easily you can get it set up. So firstly, down here, we've got our sale items. Now, once you're connected with Xero, by the way, or MYOB, we're going to pull through all your contacts and all of that stuff. So the first thing is ensuring that you have got the different labor rates that you want to use for your quotes, but then also the rates that you want your team to be assigned to. So when they log their time, what they're going to cost you. Okay, so we can also have different rates for different jobs, but at a base level, once you've put in your different rates in here so that you can build out your quote, that's really all you need to get started. And it's as simple as just going add and putting in the name of the rate and how much it is. And then you can start to use that on any of your quotes. So that's just really simple. Just wanted to point out that when you see the names here, that means that someone's actually been assigned to that rate from a timesheeting perspective. So it's all linked through. Materials. Now this one is a little bit, I guess it's got larger scope. And really the key piece here is about understanding how much detail you wish to track on your quotes. So whether that's every single nut and bolt and nail and piece of timber, or whether you want to keep it really high level. The beauty is you get to choose, and you can kind of run some jobs really, really detailed and some jobs at a high level. So, you know, very, very top line. So when it comes to materials, you can obviously, as I talked about, just add them in manually. But more often than not, what we'd recommend is that you ask your trade supplier to give you a price book. Now, the reason why I would suggest that is because prices have basically only been going one way. And if you can get a list of your material prices that you then go on and use to build your quotes from, once you've done it once and imported it once, you can just simply repeat the process and it will update all your prices inside here. And then you can update them on any quotes that you've got. Okay. And so the import material, it's as simple as getting the list from, let's say, placemakers, get them to send you your top 1,000 products. You'd then come in here and go choose the file. They would already send it to you. So in this case here, this is my top 1,000 for me. I then select it. That's added. I can then go choose import template. Here's my placemakers one. And then I just go done. Now that's ready to import. And what that's going to do is come in and it's going to add any new material lists that are in that file that haven't been in here before because it's matching on a code. Where it does find a match, it's going to check and then update the prices to be reflective of what that new price file is. So you can do this across thousands and thousands of materials, one fell swoop. Okay, so I'd highly recommend that that is the way to go. And we've got a really simple templated method to that. And that means you can pull a price list from Carter's, from Bunnings, from J. Russell, whoever you use, just get them to send you a file and then you can import them in on a regular basis. So that's really important. The other piece is around disbursements. So being able to come in here and put in any of those other kind of costs that you incur along the way, whether that's travel, accommodation, meals, things like that. Again, we use any of these items or can be used when we build our quote template. So that means you don't miss a thing. And we often find it's those little things that are missed that, you know, come back and haunt you specifically on fixed price jobs. Okay, so now that we've done that, next one was around, I need to go and get my people to get access to NextMinute. Okay, so by giving them access, they can then get visibility on the jobs and tasks that you've assigned them to, so they know what they need to be doing and when. But as I mentioned, most importantly, they can come in and add their timesheets against the different pieces. So it's as simple as coming in here and sending off an invite to your staff and ensuring that they've got the appropriate rate and their role assigned to them. So you can see that I'm the administrator in here, but I've also got Paul and Peter who have been in my team. I've got basic timesheeting. I'm just waiting for John, who's a new guy, who's joined my team, to come in and get himself approved and set up. And that means that my team can now have access to get in here. So this is a really nice place to go to see who's got access and then to see if they've got a rate assigned and then who still needs access. Okay, so once you've got that, that's all the ingredients set up for you to start to get them to timesheet. So it's not that hard, and it doesn't take very long. Like that's a matter of minutes. You know, that's stuff that you get set up in half an hour. Next thing is around the quote templates. And as I mentioned right up front, when you do the you know, a little bit of the hard work up front, get your quote template set up, you can then use it as a basis every single time to create your quote. So it's then going to get faster and faster and faster and more accurate. Now a quote template, you can add them on the fly. You can always come in here and amend them, so you can improve them and as you organically learn things. And a quote template can be as detailed. So in this case here, I've got every single material item for every single section laid out. It can be as detailed or as high level as you want. So rather than have all the different materials in here, you could just have a one-liner which said materials as per estimate from placemakers, $52,000. Okay. But what this does is this starts to build up your profile of what your costs are, and obviously marked up what your revenue is. Okay, so as you build this out section by section by section, you're building not only just a plan of all those elements, but you're building a cost profile so that you can back cost against. Now, as I mentioned, you may only just have one of these, or two or three, and that's perfectly fine. Starting simple is good. In fact, I heard a really cool, a really good quote the other day. It's like a mantra inside this business. It's a software business, and they walk around. They always talk about simple is cool. You don't have to boil the ocean here. Keep it simple, because simple is cool. And if you can get simple working well, you're way ahead. So when you build your quote, again, this is a template. You can then see a summary of what are your total costs, the different labor components, and then ultimately what your margin is in your profit. Okay, so that's my template. So now that I've got my template set up, and I can have lots of different templates, I could have one for variation. So then when a customer asks for a variation, I could have a really fast start, starting point for a variation. So it just means that I can be quick and nimble. Again, do that structure up front, and then life's really easy. So when it comes time to then creating quotes inside NextMinute, there's two main pathways in. So one is I can come in here and I can add a quote, as I mentioned, directly from a template. Okay, so all I do is I pick the template and I go, okay. I can then assign it to a customer, I can name it, and I can just hit save. Okay, so I'll just quickly get that started. So that's going to go and pick up that template and create a new quote for me. Now that I've got that, I can come in here and remove things, add things, change quantities. I can come in here and let's say I've done a re-imported price file just yesterday. I can come in here and go, for all my materials, I want to reset my list prices. Now that is so important. The biggest importance of that is you could be in the middle of a really big quote with all of these materials and all of these prices. And then in comes price changes from trade suppliers. You want to be able to get that in and reset that whole list of prices so that you're working off the latest, greatest information before you issue this quote out. Okay. So the one thing here is, so now that you've built your quote, you've got all your information here. So you can now get that quote, and let's say you have issued it out to the customer, and you can now turn that quote directly into a job. And then also, and this is the key piece, take each of those sections and create them into tasks for planning and cost accrual. And all I do is I hit yes. I put in the name of it, new build for Dave, save. Okay, that's all I need to do to kick off that process. Okay, so I've now got my mothership, this job, sitting here. I've got my quote already accrued up against it, and all of those tasks have been built out automatically from my quote. Now I can either remove them if I don't want them, or make them not show, or I can start assigning them. But the fact is that's how quickly you can take the basis of a quote template, convert it into a job, kick off all those tasks. So that's one way to do it. And I think that's a really nice way. So you build your quote first, and then you turn it into a job once you win the job. The other way, and I think I prefer this, is you start with the job. Reason being is if you start with the job, you can start to hang on that information off it, like, photos, like files. You can start attaching different files to the job as you move along. But the key thing is you have your job, and then in the same way, when you go to create a quote, you can go add, use pre-book template. So it's the same basic process. So in this case here, I've already got one created. Okay, so let's go and take a look at this. So I've now got my quote. In this case here, I've got all of my tasks already issued out. You can see I've got a link. Okay, so that's from a planning and a cost accrual perspective and all the way down. So at the point when I issued this, I knew what all my costs were and what my profit margin was going to be. So before I send this, obviously you've got to come in here and check that you're happy with all of it. And then once you've sent it, you can then come in here, and if the customer approves it, you can accept it. And then there's other things you can send off with it, like photos, notes, files, cover pages, and terms and conditions. But the key thing here is from the point where I've gone and basically created those tasks from that quote, which I've already done here, I can come in here and click on that task and get visibility directly from my quote to view that task. I can look at the status, change that. I can see if there's any notes, photos, files, any costs that have come and hit it. I can assign my team. But what I wanted to point out to you is from this point, I get a little summary here on that particular piece, which is my foundations. I quoted X, what are my actuals to date? Give me a bar of how I'm going. Okay, so you get that instantly. And that's a really important part of this, which is creating those linkages and getting visibility. Okay, now at the same token, if I want to come up a level and go, I want to look at the job, I can do that as well. So I've got my quote, I've won the job, I've issued it out, I've created my tasks. Now let's go and have a look at that planning piece that I talked about, which is how you map out your plan using that job Gantt chart. So against my job, you'll notice that I've got all of these tasks. They've been generated directly from my quote. I can always come in here and add new ones if I need to. So it's really simple. But basically what I do is I come into my job planning, and rather than having to manually go and create all these different tasks, they'll already be there for me. So if I come in here and go zoom to fit, I get access to all the other jobs that I've already got on the go. Okay, here I've got a renovation that's happening, but I can see my new beachfront batch. I can come in here and it's going to list down all of the tasks that I have already there. Okay, so from here I can start my planning. I can open up any one of these tasks directly from here and I can schedule someone onto it. I can then start to go, well, actually, I'm not going to look to start this thing till mid-January. Okay, so I can drag the whole lot out. I can then go, well, actually, I'm going to shift out the framing, and I'm going to have my foundations linked through to my framing, and then I'm going to pull that out a wee bit. And so what you can do is start to just work your way down this list and build a plan. And it's really quick, it's really easy, and then you're going to have that visibility to track. So by the time you come out to January, you're going to have a really beautiful laid out plan, and hopefully you can get the sequencing and timing to get the things done and ordered, completed when they need to be. So this is a really important piece of gluing that together. So you got your costs all organized, got your delivery plan organized. Now it's the doing. Okay, so that's the kind of key piece there. So you build that out. You've got all your information in one place. I can view any other jobs that are on the go and how they're going. And so I've got a nice set of visibility across everything. Now that I've got my tasks and I've assigned my team to them, they're obviously going to do the work. So the next piece for them is to do their timesheets. Now, timesheeting is really simple. So that's a matter of coming in, and again, they would primarily be doing it on their mobile device. They can come in and go, I want to add some time to this job that I've been working on, and I want to add some time to this particular piece that I've been working on. So I've been doing foundations for 4 hours and I was digging lots of holes. Okay. By doing that, I've just logged time against me. I've logged against that job and that particular task. So my back costing is just automatically working by virtue of having these guys timesheet. And so that's really important. And so the next piece is around, well, how do I get control of my other costs? Okay, so these are the bills and things. So if I come back to my job, and here it is, again, accessible on your mobile device, from your tablet, I can open this up and I've got all my information here, and I'm going to see that my charges are starting to build. Okay, if I even open it up, I can view the charges that have come in today. So I've got real-time access to the information as it's coming in, and this is really important. So the next piece is around getting your bills accrued up against the different parts of the job. So what you would do is, typically speaking, I would recommend taking your bills from zero and importing them in. So that's a really efficient way to do that. But for the purpose of this, I'll show you what it would be like if you just wanted to quickly manually add a charge or a bill. So what you do is you would choose the, so let's say I've ordered the stuff for the structures. I would come in here and I go, I want to add a supplier invoice, go add, and all I'm going to do is go, well, this one was from Placemakers. Okay, choose a supplier, then put in the number, whatever it was. You'd have the bill in front of you, and then you can go next. Here, you're just going to say it's for materials, and you go, this is for structures for framing, whatever it might be. The bill is for 15,600. That includes GST. Create actual charges on the way through, and I just hit save. So I've now created a bill inside NextMinute. I can take that bill and I can sync that through to Xero. So it turns up there, so no data entry once I've got it in here. So then that can be accrued and get ready to pay. But most importantly, I've added that bill and added that cost to the job and the task that it relates to. Okay, so we now come in here, and for this task, we can see how we're going. So if I now scroll down here, I can see that my total quoted amount for this structures piece is 23,000. I've just added in that material cost. So then I've got a variance. So far my costs are at 61% overall for that particular part of the job. Okay, so as you add these things in to the different parts of the job, we're starting to build up a profile of those different cost elements back against that quote. And so once again, you can either come at it from a quote perspective and go, here's my quote. And then within here, you can always see all the detail that relates to it. And then over here, if I'm interested, whilst I'm in here, I can always click on the task, which is then going to show me all the costs and how we're performing on it. And so I've got visibility at that point. So that's fundamentally what it is. Build your quote, break out your sections, put in your costs, win the work, obviously, get your plan in place. It's all linked up. The team starts timesheeting, so everything's accruing into the same place. And then from there, you can just track and manage. So really, this now leads us through into the reporting piece. So as I said, you've got that visibility at any point at a high level. So I can come into my job and I can see what have I quoted versus my actuals all the way through. Okay. So at this stage here, snapshot across the top, I'm 11% consumed through my actual charges. So there's two major reports that spawn from here. So one is the back costing. So I'll spend a bit of time on that. Now the art to all of this stuff is, it's one thing to get all the information all together. It's another thing to make it simple so you can get view across the top. So I'll do that again. So all I've done is I've gone for this job, I want to see the back costing for this particular job. And now this is happening in real time. So if someone just timesheeted 5 minutes ago, that would be sitting inside here. So here I go. So I've got my top line, and hopefully that looks big enough for you guys. Actually, I'll make that slightly bigger for you. So I've got my top line. So here's my job. Across the top, I can see how are we performing. Okay, so all my costs are in there. They're starting to come through. I've got my quoted versus actual. I've got my quoted revenue. I haven't done the invoicing yet, and I'll show you that next. But then you start to see how are we going on each of these different components. Okay, so I've got visibility, and that goes all the way up to all of the different pieces that I've broken it down to. Okay, so that's all the detail that you could possibly need. You can also get that information and extract that out. So in this world, you've now got full visibility and as much detail as you want on where your costs are versus what you said it was going to cost. Right, it's time to get paid. That's probably the best bit about all of this stuff, is getting your invoice out and getting paid. So I'll talk to that. Okay, so you've got your quote that's sitting there. Excuse me. Now, if it's a fixed price job, and again, all of the stuff I've talked about too, by the way, works really nicely for your charge up jobs. But for fixed price jobs where you're really watching your costs as they come in, it's crucial. So when it comes time to invoicing, you can invoice the entire quote, turn it into an invoice. So if it's a fixed price job, you started and you finished, and you send off one invoice, you can do that. But as you may have a longer job that spans many, many months, you will have progress payments. So as you complete certain stages or parts, you can then build them off. And what we typically see is the quotes are quite often structured around the different parts of the job and the progress payments. So what that means is you can effectively come in here and go, well, I've done that piece and I've done that piece. I want to now create an invoice directly from it. So it's just a matter of selecting those items. In this case here, I'll keep the individual sections. I can name that to be whatever I want. I hit save. I've now created a draft invoice directly from that quote. That's how quick it was. And it's going to carry through all of those details and all of the prices. Now, when you're issuing out your quote or your invoice for that matter, and it's fixed price, you're obviously not going to show all of these details. So we've got print options to show and hide that stuff. So I just wanted to show you that in case you go, oh, I don't want to show them what it cost me. So I've now got my invoice and it's broken down to those two sections. Here it is. So when I'm issuing my invoice, I know what the total is. I know what costs I have incurred as part of getting those invoices ready, and therefore I know what my profit is. So the point here is we're using all of this information so that at any point in that process, you've got that full visibility on what's going on. So I know I've consumed 370 hours of labor at a cost of 14.8. I know that my materials have cost 3.3. I can go through here and that's all transparent for me, not necessarily to my client I'm sending it to. I can then come in here and issue this directly to them. So I can attach any photos that I may have against the job. There may be a file, or you might have received a code of compliance. You can issue that out as part of sending out your invoice. Excuse me. The fact is you've got it all sitting there in one place. You've got it all reconciled back against that quote. You've issued it out. You can then sync it back into Xero. So that's all reconciled as well. And that's literally how fast it is to go through and create an invoice from that quote. Now, I guess one of the next questions would be is, how do I know if I've invoiced it? Well, what we do is we show you back inside that quote that you have invoiced out the whole amount. And at the stage here, there's none remaining. So if I'd only done a part invoice, it would show me what was left. So as I move through each of these, I can see that my framing's all invoiced. That's lovely. Structures, not invoiced. There's an amount remaining. So when I come to my quote, I'm always going to start to get my balance of what's happening here. Okay, how much have I invoiced? What's remaining? So that's really useful information. Once again, we're just reusing that stuff all the way through that chain. So then when I come to my report, let's run it one more time. We can see all of that stuff sitting together in one train of information. And it's, that's logically how it needs to be. So I've got my job, I've got my costs, what I've estimated, I've got my actual costs, got my cost variance, estimated revenue, which is what my total prize pool is. What have I invoiced in dollar terms to date? Actual revenue. Percentage. How much of my percentage do I invoice? So for me, I look at that and I've got about 77% left to invoice. You got what's left to invoice. So out of the total that I've invoiced dollar-wise, what's left, I'm starting to run a gross profit and it's working out for me and deriving my margin. Now, as we move down through here, we're going to start to see that information pipe through from a detailed perspective. So this is now showing me from my foundations, I quoted X, actuals, where are we at? And that's really, really important to show that you've come through here. In this case here, I know that I've invoiced 100% of what I said I was going to do. So I know that the job's done on that one. And as you move down through, structures, as I pointed out, here's all the dollars. I'm yet to invoice anything yet, so I know that that's something that I need to do. So the moral of the story is get yourself set up for success. Do it once, do it properly, and then just let it roll through. And then your job back costing is going to be that simple. From quote to timesheets to bills, wrap out your invoices, run a report across the top, and you have in essence got all the detail that you need to run your back costing components. And as I suggested, you can start really simple. Simple is cool. And then over time, you can build those out. But ultimately, this is about making your life easier. Right, so getting close to the end of the session here. So I'll just come back. Thank you for listening and taking the time to, by the way. And it's just something that's really important. And I guess my view is it doesn't have to be that hard. So then if you're sitting on here and you're listening to this going, well, so who could use this? Who is NextMinute right for? And basically, all the trades, anyone who's doing jobs that typically are multi-day, weeks, months. I mean, that back costing specifically is really, really important for that. Anyone who's doing bigger jobs like this you need back costing. Anyone who's doing fixed price jobs, so critical that you've got back costing. A product scales up, typically, and we've got some customers who are over 50, but anywhere from, sort of 1 to 50 in your staff or employees is a good place to be. And then basically anyone who's looking to elevate their profitability and processes, making their business life easier. That is honestly, if I strip it all back, if that's one thing that you can walk away with is your life will be easier when you use NextMinute. Now, look, I understand that it's officially the 1st of December today, and it does start to get into, it's so manic at the moment, and it's probably been more crazy running than we've ever had, and I appreciate that. But I guess as things start to taper off a bit, and you do get a little bit of time, go and learn some more about NextMinute. We'd love to have a chat to you. You can start your own demo, so you can kind of take your time and play around with. You can book in a demo with the team and they can give you a lot more detail around kind of what I've given you. They're also here to help you get set up. So if you wanted help to get your quote set up, we'll help you. If you wanted help to get your materials price box imported, we'll help you. The key thing is get connected and back cost like a champ. And your 2022 is going to be sailing off because there's plenty of work. Go and get that work, but get the money you deserve. So that is basically the end of my presentation. Hopefully there's a little bit of time for any questions if any have come in.
We do actually have a question, and possibly it's been answered already by just that demo. So we had a question by Miranda and said, hi, is NextMinute along the same line as Fergus, Tradify, and GeoOp? So yeah, I mean, probably.
So the answer to that is, yeah, look, it's similar. Like it's all about trying to make life easier for tradies. I guess the main points of difference, if I had to sort of look at some of the features, is that detailed back costing I just talked about. we've got a bit more grunt and I guess method to taking a job and breaking it down to its subcomponents to back cost against. And then the only other difference is some of our integrations where we can pull the bills from zero MIOB. But look,
I love that.
The key thing is yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but the key thing is like all of the software is all really good. It's about understanding what you need. And look, I salute anyone who actually goes and takes a step from using nothing to something. So I guess the key point here is come and take a look at what we do, get an understanding, and we can get an understanding of your business, and we can help you navigate through those first steps.
Fantastic. And I love the fact that you guys are open to having people call and, having a bit of a chat so they know that it's really individualized attention, which is quite lovely. I'm just dropping over to the other platforms and make sure I'm not missing any questions on Facebook or LinkedIn.
And it's something I didn't mention there also is look, more and more businesses are starting to use bookkeepers alongside accountants as well. Have a chat to your bookkeeper too. I mean, that's a really important thing because, we're not bookkeepers. There's some things that they'll be doing for you, like your payroll and other sort of monthly reconciliation. So have a chat to them. It might be that you get them to go and take a look at this. And I think use the people that are around you to help. And that's just, sorry, I didn't mention it earlier, but that's another really key sort of lead in for you to get a bit more of an understanding around how this stuff fits.
Yeah, no, fantastic. This has been a wonderful presentation, so informative, so much good knowledge there. And I love that you did a bit of a walkthrough so we can actually see how it works, which is quite cool.
So risky to do that in Amari, doing live demos is, I was always told not to do that. But I love it, eh? It's the thrill of a live demo.
I think it's great because I think sometimes they go, oh, go ahead and have a free trial, go ahead and check it out. But, it does take us a minute to learn how to navigate a new platform. So, although I'm sure like every platform, everybody's looking to have that intuitive kind of nature to their platform. When we're learning new technology, we're learning new technology. So when you do a walkthrough, it's fantastic because you know where to go and we can see all the features that possibly would have missed some of those features if we were just checking it out ourselves. So I'm really glad that you did do that. So we don't have a problem with that here in Digital Boost.
I'm just glad it worked out. Well, that's brilliant. So like I'd love to hear from anyone who's got any more questions. Please feel free to reach out to us. I do know it's a busy time right now, so if not now, come and have a chat in the new year. Love to sort of run you through it a little bit more.
Thanks again for doing a second session with us. I really wanted to do this. I think that this is an industry that often gets, like, it needs tech the most, but often gets overlooked. And it can make everybody's life a lot easier admin wise and also getting paid. Who doesn't want that? So
great time to be getting paid. Is
great
now,
time
right?
to be getting paid.
No, I need to get paid. Money's flying out the door at the moment. Christmas and things. But no, look, it's a cool story. And I, as I said, and thank you for having me, and Amari. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this.
My pleasure.
And Digital Boost. This is a really cool thing. In fact, we had someone call us this week who was going to jump in or wanted to attend this session. So I think that's really nice that it is actually the word's getting out. And I think you guys are doing a fantastic job.
Fantastic. Oh, thanks for that feedback. All right. Well, I think that's going to be us for today. Thanks, Dave. Have a wonderful day. I don't know if it's the same weather here in Coromandel, but I hope you have a wonderful day and get out in it.
Nice. That is what it is over here in the Whangamata.
Oh, lovely.
But yeah, lovely.
All right. See everyone.